All right, well, hello, everybody. You are among the chosen few who are with us, not only in spirit, but in actual presence on the afternoon of a July summer day. It's wonderful that you're here. As you all, I'm sure, are experiencing, we are the active minority of people who are focused, in tune, and doing stuff right now in 2021 in the summer, and not just sitting around worrying about what's happening out there. I was just reading a wonderful book, which I highly recommend, not about politics, called My Grandmother's Hands. And it is about remembered trauma in the body. And it focuses on African-American folks, white folks, and police folks, and about how trauma is sort of passed down through the generations and what kind of effect that has on people. And it is just filled with exercises on how to settle one's body. That's what he talks about. Bringing a settled body and a settled mind to anything that we're doing, particularly anything that we're doing that's difficult or upsetting. And I was reading just one section of the book last night about how when you get together in a group, one of the things that's wonderful to do is one of the exercises that makes you really feel like a group. And those exercises could include singing or humming or physical touch to one another, holding hands, dancing, all sorts of things. And I was just thinking, boy, would that work on Zoom? Probably not exactly. But I guess I just want to invite everybody to imagine that, to imagine our being able to hold hands or hum together. I don't know what humming together on Zoom would do, but just the idea that, yes, I like that idea, Mary. We could all just sort of put our hands up and symbolically touch one another. I like that. But just the idea of these meetings every month and the fundraisers that we have, I think it gives me, and I think it gives most of the folks that attend, just a sense of being close and being in a group and being connected. And it's just not only reassuring and inspiring to be in a group of people who are like-minded and are all focused on the same thing, but I think it just gives us strength to keep doing what we're doing. I think it would be almost impossible to do what we're doing if we were alone. Or trying to pull along one or two friends. But being in this group, there's 35 people here today. I'm very grateful for the groupness of it. So I'm grateful that you're all with us today. Before I just hand it over to Jim, today is going to be mostly focused on Virginia. We're going to hear from Katie Sponsler, who is running in Virginia down near Richmond. We're going to be canvassing for her later in the month. And we were just talking before people were joining about, Virginia is not a given. And we have to remember to paddle or we're not going to get there. We have to keep paddling, and we have to paddle powerfully because we really need Virginia. It's almost inconceivable how badly it would feel to lose Virginia in November. That would just be terrible in so many different ways. I think we can all imagine that. So it's really important for us to focus on Virginia now and going through November. And even though 31st Street is also obviously really focused on Pennsylvania, and we're not forgetting about North Carolina or Georgia, Virginia really is at the top of our minds today. So we're very glad that Katie's going to be joining us, and we're going to hear more about it from Jim. So thanks for being here, and we'll talk a little bit later. We'll have chance for questions and discussion. Jim?
Okay, can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay. And I think I know everybody here, so I don't necessarily have to give my usual spiel about my former life or anything like that. And I do appreciate the opportunity that I get here to kind of put some of my thoughts forward. And some of it is just personal views, I think based on a lot of thought, but I appreciate that opportunity. Some of it's kind of general, and then we'll get to Pennsylvania, and it's some of you've seen before also, some of you, so bear with me, some of it'll be new, but it starts off a bit on the, call it the negative side, but the negativity in a way actually provides opportunity. So that's the virtue. Okay, so all right, so I've got 3 slides on what I call campaign dysfunction or election dysfunction. And it's the way the world is, but it allows us to sort of take advantage in a way to try to get the best out of the efforts that we make. You may know that I call this the roller coaster phenomenon, which is that this is the way our campaign cycles work. In fact, that's why they call it a campaign, because it's a limited effort and then it goes away. And so we're trying to change that into something that's more like an ocean liner. And of course, that's a lot of what we're trying to do in Pennsylvania to get year-round canvassing. Likewise, another metaphor, the way our system works, especially on the Democratic side, is that there are many, many individual silos. All the candidates are trying to win. Their egos, their staffs are trying to get them to win. And there is some collective action, but not that much, typically. And some silos are a whole lot bigger than others. And the big silos tend to kind of soak up the money, and that doesn't leave as much money for other things to go on. But again, that provides us opportunity to find those places where additional money can make a lot of difference. And speaking of money, part 3 is the overemphasis on television. You've heard me talk about this before, but I'm sort of spelling it out a little bit more than I have in the past. It's expensive. The audience is ever decreasing. It's poorly targeted because it goes out to almost, to a whole area without knowing who it's going to very well. It's highly persuasion oriented. You know that we have persuasion and we have turnout, and my view is that turnout is, they're both important, of course, but turnout is where the bigger bang for the buck is. Viewers like me, we tape our shows and then we just skip over the ads. I think a lot of younger people, even if they watch TV, that's what they do. And people get saturated, they get fed up, they turn off, especially toward the end of the cycle, which is when most of the money gets spent on TV. And sure enough, I mentioned this the last membership meeting, there were 3 recent Democratic 2020 lookbacks that basically made that point. And yet we're still going to continue to see that. However, that does give us the opportunity to zig when other people are zagging. And it's a lot of, all these things lead to our orientation toward the ground game, if you will, and organizing. And for folks who don't really have a good grasp of what organizers do, I've got this long list. Of course, we're doing it now, we're going to be supporting it in prevention in Pennsylvania for the longer term. And so this first set of things that people do, like outreach and registration and even fundraising, letters to the editor, local issues, all those kinds of things are things that are across candidates and across campaigns and are really good for the long run. And it's not just in Pennsylvania, by the way, hopefully people may know that once we've done with our Pennsylvania work and Virginia, certainly when we get through November, we're going to turn to this organizing theme again. And we've been doing due diligence in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia for local grassroots groups who this is exactly what they do, and they need support. And we're looking for the ones that need support and are effective. And then in the short term, during election time, it's more, this is what we're getting to in Virginia now, especially canvassing and so forth. So hopefully that helps people get a good sense of what organizing is. Now, shifting gears, and if you'll indulge me, having looked at the landscape of what's going on both nationally and to some extent in Virginia, there are three messaging themes. You know, I like to try to play amateur messenger if I were a communication person. These are the themes I would be pushing in general, not necessarily in this detail. But one, the economy is really doing well, notwithstanding the Delta variant. It's morning in America, you know, and Democrats deliver American Rescue Plan, reopening. And in the Virginia, we're going to, of course, see a tape later where we supported this. We've got things to point to that are on this sort of positive side related to the economy and what I call human investment. Then, interestingly, and people don't we don't do enough negative messaging, in my opinion, on the Democratic side. It's the evils of the greedy super rich. And for those of you who are book readers, the book called Let Them Eat Tweets, that's right, tweets, is actually really good at laying this out. And, you know, basically what the greedy rich are wanted to have is all these things, unfair taxes and low wages and so forth, and neglecting the things that need to be done. And of course, have all these distractions about what we're talking about. It's been all about distractions ever since Willie Horton, to a large extent. I really think that it'd be really good to try and get that message out there so that people understand that these distractions are what they are. And then I think we ought to be going after Trump, and I'm happy to see that Terry McAuliffe is doing a little bit of that in his TV ad as well. All right, now switching then to the current situation in Virginia. Those of you who live in Virginia or otherwise may know more about this than I do, so we can chime in about that later on. The polling I've seen, and I haven't seen anything in at least a week or so, has McAuliffe ahead, but not by that much. Perhaps, you know, 4 or more points. And that may be because Youngkin did a whole lot of early advertising, trying to position himself as pretty reasonable and moderate. Even though I disparage television, I do think that especially with when you first get out as kind of a first mover advantage, I think it can kind of help you for a while. I don't know that it helps you very long. So I hope that's what's going on. They're both raising mega money. So again, my general view is that our money's better spent elsewhere, including supporting our delegate candidates. And McAuliffe recently did start this seeing as TV advertising. And I thought it was a good ad. I give it about an A- or B+. But tying Youngkin to Trump is really good. And I think we ought to beat on that, because the governor's race is a major challenge for us, but Youngkin is, excuse me, there should be a G in there. I hope I spelled McAuliffe right. Anyway, he's in a tough spot because he's trying to appear moderate, but at the same time, he's trying to appeal to the Trump supporters. And I don't think he's all that able to pull that off. And notably, the NRA has endorsed the other 2 Republican candidates for lieutenant governor and for attorney general, but they haven't endorsed him yet. So I'm hoping he's going to have a tough time. Polling is ongoing in the individual delegate races. What I'm hearing secondhand is that it's, again, it's not clear for us. It's kind of mediocre in a way. We got our work cut out for us. And it was, as I showed this ad last membership meeting, the Republicans do have their attack ads out there. And the fact that that's there reinforces the importance that we really want to be encouraging delegate campaigns to be acting now to do their voter outreach. Okay, so I know people are thinking about critical race theory. I by no means consider myself as, an expert or thoroughly knowledgeable about it, but I think it's worth getting out on the table. It's clearly the Republicans are trying to make it the new defund the police. So this is their latest wedge issue. And it is what it is. What I'm hearing from polling is that most people still don't know what it is. And, there's a but I have a three kind of, if I'm going to be doing canvassing and somebody asks me about it next Saturday, these are the kind of responses I'm going to try to give. Making this point, this is really just what the extremist conservatives are trying to do to divert us attention from real issues and to what divides us, or reframe it by saying, the real issue isn't that. The real issue is how well we're supporting our schools for our children. Or, and I saw this actually in a poll, and it came out really well among the people that they are, which is to, again, shift it to a different sort of framing. That it's important to teachers to be free to teach the truth about our history. And I don't know where this is all going to come out, but I do think we need to try to resist the temptation as kind of analytical, politically oriented people to kind of zero in on the intricacies of the sort of supposed issue, because if we spend too much time talking about it, then we lose, then they win. I'm not saying we don't talk about it, but we got to figure out a way to sort of get our message as well. All right, so I imagine a number of you recognize these wonderful people, including recognizing yourselves in this great picture. So we are in full mode, I guess I would say, of canvassing. And our last, we had 23 people there. They're not all actually even in this picture. And we have a good group going down to south of Richmond on Saturday with Katie Sponsler. And hoping that we'll hear more from Lynn about this in a bit. All right, and then again, I wanted to kind of drill down a little bit about low propensity voters. Many of you may know that I think that this is the secret or the most important thing nationally, but also in Virginia is obviously we want to reach all, any potential voters for us. But this potential group, I think, is really important. For example, in Katie's district, Biden won it by 5%. If you get those same voters to come out and vote for her, we'll win. So that's just one example. And of course, they're largely non-college educated voters, and the non-college educated whites are 40 to 44% of the electorate. So it's the majority of the electorate. Not all low propensity are non-college educated and vice versa, but there's a lot of overlap. One key thing to recognize is that they do tend to be quite often progressive, even quite progressive, on economic and what I call the human investment issues like education and healthcare. But they're not so progressive on the socially related issues. So, this recent victory by Adams in New York City, I think, is a good example of it. And so it's really important for, the other thing is that they're low information and low engagement voters. So the key is to find a very few key issues that will resonate with perhaps even different segments of them, and then reach out in that way. This is in my opinion. And of course, connect multiple times in multiple ways. That's a basic behavior change. But particularly for this set of folks. So that's one reason why we're starting out with these low propensity voters in District 66 next Saturday. And it's really important. That's why one reason why TV is not good, but all these other things, digital mail, oftentimes radio, canvassing, et cetera, are good if we're trying to reach those kind of voters. Here's one other thing is that we do have, there's actually 43 days of early voting because the Saturday and Sunday, I guess, or Sunday and Monday, or I guess, are not early voting days. But we have a lot of early voting days. That gives us more time presumably, and ability to turn out these voters. I don't think we've necessarily thought that through, but it is something we need to think through. Okay, now in terms of our current funding levels, year-round organizing in Pennsylvania, our goal is $350,000. And so far we're $263,000 after our latest fundraiser, which was reasonably successful. For our Virginia Challenger slate, our goal is $100,000, about $20,000 each. And we're at about 60,000 today. So that's why we're hoping that folks will provide some more donation today for the slate after hearing Katie, because we really need the money now. Again, if you've heard my argument about the low propensity voters and trying to do something before the forces of Republicans kind of overpower us, these folks do need their money so they can get their campaigns going more. And here's the picture of them that you may have seen before, but it's good to see their faces. All right, now I'm going to now move to introducing Katie. But the first step of the introduction of Katie is to show a video that we produced with her, with Chris Bachman and our digital initiative. And here goes.
I came from a family of folks who labor for a living. When I was 18, I got married and had my daughter. I was a waitress working double shifts every day to pay all the bills. One day at work, I was closing up. There was an armed robber. He fired 2 shots and one of them struck my left arm. I realized that I had to do something to make opportunities for my daughter and I. So I joined the Air Force, enlisted, served for 11 years in the United States military. I was able to get a job with the Park Service. I'm not a starving 18-year-old kid waiting tables anymore, but something that was so deeply ingrained in me from the time I was born that somebody needs help, you give it. A lot of the people in this district have just been left behind. We need people who have lived those experiences, who are willing to fight, making direct changes that make their lives better. People would start to see the impact on their lives. When we have good representation, we have good lives.
Okay, so I'm stopping sharing and I'm hoping that I saw Katie come on. So I'm over to you, Katie. How's that?
Yes, she's here.
Yeah, I came on twice. My internet booted me, so I don't talk about broadband too much in this district, but I might have to start. My name's Katie Sponsler, and I am the Democratic nominee for the 66th district in Virginia's House of Delegates. The 66th district is basically the space between Richmond and Petersburg. So I joke that in the national elections, we hear about flyover country. The 66th district is drive-through country. So what that means is that this is pretty much an old byway corridor, and it's a lot of dilapidated main streets, ex-urban and working class district. It is the kind of district that is frequently neglected. So I have been focusing a lot on those low propensity voters, because when you neglect a district, it means that nobody knocks on your door. It means that nobody informs you how the system works and what your state and local representatives actually do to make your lives better, or should be doing. The other part of that is that we know that when you're working class, you're working 2 to 3 jobs, you're taking care of your kids, you're trying to make ends meet, you don't have time to actively engage. So we have to go to where the voters are. We have to speak to them in the place that they are most likely to have time to listen to us and where we resonate with them. So a lot of that is on the doors. So I am gonna thank you kind of in advance for coming down next weekend. We are specifically creating list of low propensity voters, and that's what we've been on for since the primary is low propensity voters, but in those working class neighborhoods. And I'm going to kind of start this off. You got a little bit of my bio in the video, which I'm very grateful for the production value of from all of y'all, and that helpful because it is really resonated very well, and we're hearing a lot of really great feedback from it. So, and we're hoping that we can get a little bit more so that we can actually pay and go beyond that organic reach. But yesterday, I was in an apartment complex in one of these incredibly gerrymandered precincts that has really not been touched. And the thing about apartment complexes is that the individuals that live there are transient. You know, it changes. So we always have terrible IDs on them. They're also typically low-income backgrounds. We were just on the south side of Richmond, and I had a friend, a volunteer, canvassing the turf next to mine. And she called me and she said, hey, there's a young woman at 4680 that would love to chat with you when you have a minute. So I finished up my turf and I walked over to her turf, and I went to the apartment number that she had given me. And there was a 20-year-old woman who was a young mother of two, and she was trying to put herself through school. And she had read the little bit on my lit about the fact that I had attempted to put myself through school and then ended up joining the military. And she had been thinking about the military for months. And so what her question was, it wasn't political. She wanted to know what it was like to be a young mom joining the military, and if those opportunities were, worthwhile. So I did the little bit of the bio and the, tech sergeant in me that helps develop young airmen, and gave her the goods and the bads. But then it occurred to me walking away that 500 miles away from my hometown, 20 years later, young mothers, young, poor kids from poor neighborhoods are still facing the same barriers, still making those same difficult choices, still feeling like there is only one way out and up in this country. And I was listening to her talk about how she said, the thing that stuck with me the most, I think, was she said, I don't want my kids to be lawyers and doctors, but I at least want them to have a shot at it. And the fact that we live in a society where some know that that's what their kids are going to do, and that they fight with their children to make sure that that's what they do. Others are just thinking, I just want you to have a chance. I just want you to not be seen as a threat by the police. I just want you to be able to dream of doing this, just to be able to hold on to that dream. And it hasn't changed. And if anything, it's gotten worse. And so I think that is the primary reason I run, because 19-year-old Katie is 20-year-old Cece in Richmond. It is, it is all over this country, and it hasn't changed. And we need to stop building these barriers, and we need to start creating opportunities and passive opportunities that don't rely on a commitment to the United States military in order to have a chance. And even then, we know that limits a lot of folks. And I am grateful for the opportunities the military gave me, and I loved the military and I love serving, but it is not for everyone. And I think it's important to note that being the one pathway out for so many kids all over this country is very problematic, and it limits who we are as a nation and how we grow. And so in addition to being a veteran, and in addition to being a former park ranger with the National Park Service, I am the mother of two children on the autism spectrum. So every day that is a motivator for me as well. I got into this gig, 5-6 years ago through two things: environment and activism, in education. And the environment is, I grew up on the shores of the Cuyahoga River. It's kind of, I joke that it's in my blood because I probably drank it and it's probably toxic. But environmentalism comes from not only where I grew up, and what I enjoyed doing as a kid. When we needed extra food, when we needed extra meat, we went out hunting with my dad. We went out fishing with my dad. We grew and gardened in our yard to provide produce for my family. So I grew up knowing that what we put in the soil, what we put in the water, what we put into our environment comes back to us. And that can be a very negative thing. Both my grandmothers died young of gynecological cancers. And I myself now have a chronic lymphoma that I believe is most likely from burn pits that we utilized in Afghanistan to contractors utilized to burn garbage rather than actually take care of it in a responsible way. I know that here in this district that is largely landfills, we have, and we landfill out-of-state waste. About 25% of Virginia's garbage is out-of-state waste, and we put that in poor people's backyards. So here in the 66th district, we have 2 of those large landfills that are filled with out-of-state waste. We also have some of the largest rates of asthma in the country here in this district. Out of the top 10 zip codes in Virginia, we have 4 out of the top 5 in the 66th district. We know that is due to not just carbon, but methane emissions. We do have carbon and producing fossil fuel burning power plants as well here in the district. So talking about changing to a clean energy economy and speaking towards environmental justice in the aspect of how it impacts us here right now and how our children are feeling those ramifications. Also, we deal a lot with education because as a mother of 2 children who are not just on the autism spectrum, but also gifted, I know how difficult it is to fight a system. And JLARC here, our legislative research firm in Virginia, has produced a nonpartisan survey just recently that told us what every parent of children with disabilities knows, that we are leaving our disabled children behind significantly in Virginia's educational system. But we are also leaving behind a lot of kids. Our funding formula leaves kids in poor neighborhoods behind. It leaves kids of color behind, and it leaves kids with disabilities behind. We know that. So working very hard to make sure that we are building a better education system that's not just equitable and inclusive, but actually helps kids thrive instead of just survive. I always say that there's kind of kids that they set aside, right? That this kid is going to excel, and this kid we're going to get through. And I know that my children, having a 504 and an IEP, they're put in that get through category. Well, my 22-year-old just graduated college with a dual major in Russian and intelligence studies and with honors. And had our system kept her in that get by category, and I hadn't fought, I don't know that that would have been possible. And the world would have been missing a great, big, beautiful brain that sees things completely differently, but is going to make a better world. And that's how I look at that investment, right? Is that there are thousands of great, big, beautiful brains in our world. And so many of them are getting left behind. So education to me is an exercise in fiscal responsibility. When we invest in our children and when we invest in making sure that we educate all children equitably and well, we build a future where they innovate, where they change, where poverty is less likely to happen, where generational poverty disappears, where incarceration disappears. And those things are expensive. So if you're a fiscal conservative, education is the one investment we can make now that pays off dividends in our future. So, and finally, we locally also, especially for those of y'all who are coming down next weekend, we focus a lot on economic justice. A working class district is a working class district for a reason. There are frequently no zones of opportunity, no transportation, and no affordable housing. And that is the case here over and over again. We talk about the money that we spend on healthcare, and we spend more money when environmental justice is not done properly, because communities of color, impoverished communities, they actually have to spend more money on their healthcare because they're sicker, because we don't take environmental justice seriously. Education means that we spend more money on incarceration and policing and criminal interventions. When we talk about these things, we talk about them as a web. And it's really important to understand how all these things feed into each other. And at the root of that web, at the base of that pyramid, is poverty. And when we give folks economic opportunities, I apologize, whether it's raising the minimum wage, providing paid sick leave, or providing affordable childcare. When we build those economic opportunities, we build educational opportunities. We build environmental opportunities. We build healthcare justice. We build criminal justice reform. And as a former law enforcement officer, criminal justice reform is also something that resonates here. You will not hear the attacks on defund the police that you hear on the national level. My opponent likes to say them, but the truth is here, what I hear more likely at the doors is, look, I don't want to say defund the police, but we need justice reform. We need to do something. My babies, I hear on the doors in Black communities more frequently than I'd like to admit, I am not sure when this adorable child becomes a threat, but I'm terrified of it. And it breaks my heart because I know that that child will become perceived as a threat in the eyes of law enforcement at a certain age. And our children should never be perceived as threats. But that is what parents have to think. As a mother of a 6-year-old on the spectrum who is white, his name is Lars Wolfgang, you can't get any whiter. I still have to concern myself about when he becomes a threat because I know those with disabilities and those with autism are more likely to be acted upon with violence by our criminal justice system. I know those with mental illness are more likely to be acted with violence in our criminal justice system. And those things concern me too. I look at my beautiful son and I think, when is his STEM become an act of aggression? When does the fact that he needs to flap his arms to settle his brain a little bit become something that gets him shot? Because I know I've worked with the officers as they train. I know the way that they'll perceive the way he moves, and it terrifies me. So criminal justice reform is not just within my community, it's personal for me. It's something that is incredibly important to me that we do. Plus, it protects our officers. Statistics, my education and my background are in criminal justice, and statistics show us over and over and over again. When we do things like take care of community wraparound supports, when we do things like treat addiction, when we do things like provide economic opportunities, when we do things like provide crisis intervention and de-escalation training for our officers, they get killed and injured on the job less often. And they're also less likely to use violence against their community, which means they are less likely to commit suicide. So we protect our officers when we invest in criminal justice reform, not just our communities. Plus, we allow them to do the job they signed up for, which is all most of them want to do, which is to protect and serve. So that is a little bit about our platform and our district, and how my personal story and my personal background feeds into it. What I would love to let you know is that the kind of things that you all have provided for us, your support has been invaluable to this point. We are incredibly grateful. It has taken care of communicating. When Jim talked about the fact that we need to communicate in multiple ways across multiple platforms, we agree 100%. We believe in, I call it scattershot theory. I don't know whether you're going to be on Candy Crush or Facebook, or you actually still watch TV, or you are somebody who will pick up their phone, or if you are somebody who will answer their door, or if you just love a handwritten postcard. But I'm going to make sure that I have tried every possible method to try to talk to you. And that costs money. We do agree that we are dealing with an open seat that trends about 8 points Democratic. So we believe that we have one of the most winnable seats in the Commonwealth, the most flippable seats in the Commonwealth. We do know, though, that those voters need to know that their vote matters, because it hasn't for a very long time due to gerrymandering. So we need to reach out to them. We need to talk to them. And we know that there are a lot of ways that we can do that. But one of the first things they need to know is who I am, so that they are open to the idea of trusting me a little bit. Before my opponent, who is also an unknown, gets to define me, we're going to define me. We're going to make sure that folks have had the chance to meet me, have been there. Now, we've been out this since December. We were doing a lot of virtual events, of course, until about April. I think we did our first in person. We did a Earth Day event with some rangers on Zoom, and I brought in my buddies from all over the country, serving at different national parks, and taught people how to be park rangers. We also did it. But we have invited folks. We provide childcare at all our events, really hoping to get folks in, but also have been trying to be in the community as much as possible, and have been out canvassing since February. But we need to continue doing that. We were hitting a different target for our primary than we are going to be hitting now. And we need to make sure, especially with those low propensity voters in these disadvantaged communities and disenfranchised communities, that we are hitting them early and often. And we are finding the way that resonates with them. So each touch is the potential to earn that vote. And as much as possible, I want that to be me. I love my volunteers, they're wonderful, but if you're gonna convince somebody that you care about their community, them seeing you actually in it is probably the easiest way to convince them. So every dollar donated, every minute that we spend doing that means that it's a minute less I have to spend on call time, which means it's a minute more I can spend on the doors. It means it's another door I can knock. It's another opportunity for me to communicate with a voter. So on top of the very big concrete things that money buys, like the digital targeting and the digital ad buys and the paid canvassers and the literature that they have in their hands, there are the more abstract things, like it buys me time off of call time so that I can directly communicate with voters, because that is what wins in these tough districts. And that is something that's incredibly important to me as well, because I wouldn't have gotten to meet Cece. I wouldn't have gotten to hear her story. And I wouldn't have been able to give her, and by the way, she was not on our list. It was a different resident of that home, but she did not typically vote. And so she promised me, in addition to the whole conversation, that her and her boyfriend were going to vote for me in November. But it also means that I get to talk to her and I get to tell her things are going to be okay. And that's why I do this. So that is an incredibly important piece of my personal motivation that keeps me out there, keeps me fighting. And so, that is something that money buys. That's incredibly abstract, but incredibly important. So I would be happy to take, I'm going to pop out my headpiece because it's dying on me. And I would be happy to take questions. I think I still have a little bit of time for it. Yeah. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Katie. I am Aaron Hamburger. I'm the membership coordinator at 31st Street Swing Left, and you're getting a lot of applause and happy thoughts in the chat. We have, and I just donated to you myself, actually. So, and I see a number of our members are doing that as well. We have a couple of questions that popped up. First one is, what do you want to do to increase economic opportunities in your district?
So one of the things that I talk a lot about, I grew up, for those of you who may be familiar, I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, which we refer to as the house that steel built where I was from. Now there is one steel mill. But one of the things that we did in the late 90s that was actually very successful until we stopped providing help for it was what we called small business and economic incubators. So in order to revitalize the downtown, they put a number of opportunity places. So there was one I used most frequently was a community kitchen, right? I could walk in, it was health code certified, and I could produce pastries and stuff to sell to local restaurants. So it gave me an opportunity to not have to pay for a kitchen, not have to pay for the business license to upkeep a kitchen, but still to use my talent to sell something. And the Air Force was nice enough to certify me as a pastry chef. So one of the things I talk a lot about is incubation and capital for folks in our area to create those. But then there are the basic things, affordable housing. If you're struggling to pay for your housing, you cannot get ahead. You can't put aside money for schooling. You can't put aside money for a healthcare crisis. So making sure that we have affordable housing. We have a large transient population. We have a lot of houseless population in the Route 10 corridor. So working to create affordable housing opportunities and to create home ownership opportunities for others as well. Rent tends to be much higher than a house payment for those of y'all who have never paid rent. But it's usually the only option for a lot of us. So that is wasted capital for us as well, for working class folks. Better paying job opportunities. Right now, most of our income earners here are at the bare minimum. So creating that I would like to definitely push forward Virginia's minimum wage increase. We have done it as eventually by 2024, we will get to 15. And by then I think 15 is going to be completely unlivable. And then there are a lot of smaller pieces of the puzzle as well that folks might not think about as much. Our water infrastructure is dying here in the county. We have not upgraded it in 60 years. And in that time, our population and our development has doubled in Chesterfield County. What that means is water rate increases. For residents of the 66th district, about 40% of them will find their water bill unaffordable within the next 10 years because of that. Unaffordable for a water bill is considered 5% of your income. So we are rapidly increasing our water rates. So those tiny little things, and I can tell you on the doors, I have heard people tell me exactly how much. When I bring it up, they're like 107. That's how much my water rate has gone up in the last year. They know, because when you are counting every penny, those water rate increases, energy bills, broadband expenses, childcare expenses, anything like that that goes up even by an incremental amount is a huge devastation to your plans, to your future, to your progress, to this idea you have, right? And you're this 19-year-old kid and you're like, I've got $300 in the bank, and that's going to be, that's going to be a book. That's going to be a down payment on tuition. And that's going to pay for my application fee for the college that I want to go to, which most universities are getting rid of. That's a dated reference now. But so you, and that's all of a sudden gone because of something. Because the electricity went out and everything in your fridge is spoiled and you have to pay for a new one. That'll set you back 6-7 months. So creating the little bridges that prevent that from happening to so many people in my district is the largest economic opportunity I want to offer. But there are bigger programs and definitely family-based economies to bring back the she session. We know that so many women, and in this district, women of color, Latinx women, Black women, and are particularly impacted by that. Most of them have not gotten back to work in this district, and providing those opportunities to make sure that we can get affordable childcare so they can go back to work is really important here.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, I think we have time for one more question, which is, how has your opponent tried to frame this race, and how are you responding?
So my opponent has gone two different directions. Early on, he was very clearly he's an Amanda Chase Republican. I know some of y'all were involved in 2019, so you probably know our favorite Republican down here pretty well. He, is a supporter of the big lie. He has very much a right-wing Republican, and he was screaming about gun rights and defund the police, and she's going to keep our kids out of school and slow start to the economy. We got some polling, and I think he must have too, that indicated we were leading, not by a lot. And July polls are like cotton candy. They're sweet, but they don't last. But he has taken a sharp turn and is now, he showed up at an Equal Justice Collaborative meeting recently. He has taken some different steps to kind of build bridges with the Chesterfield Educators Association. And, so we are a little bit unsure how he's exactly going to frame it because his messaging changes from week to week. And so that is mostly our response, is that, look, his messaging changes. Who is this guy? You don't know. He has been a hard right Republican for a long time. But now, no, he's this sweet teacher who just loves kids, and he's a preacher, so he's taking care of everyone. And either is fine, but which one is he? And I found I am poor people. I grew up from poor people. Poor people can smell a fertilizer salesman from a mile away. So that is why we kind of frame it that way. This is a guy that nobody knows who he is. He will tell you what he wants you, what he thinks you need to hear, what he thinks you want to hear. It doesn't matter to him as long as he wins. And that is not what this is about. This should be about serving. And this community needs served. And so, that is our largest response to him at this point, is just, this, you can't trust this guy. And we think that's genuine and it's fair because he has shown that. So
that's great. I love it. Well, I think we definitely know who you are, and I know that we are excited to support you both with dollars. We are now at $9,400, and with canvassing as well. And I believe, so first of all, thank you, Katie, for coming to speak to us. And I believe that we're going to hear now from Lynn Fletcher, who is going to be the lead for the canvas for you as well. Is that right?
Well, before we do, I just say that we're at $9,400. It'd be really nice if we could get to $10,000. And if somebody will put up 300, I'll put up the other 300. So I'll wait. I'll wait and see if somebody does that.
Great.
Katie, thank you so much. That was really amazing.
Yes.
I mean, we're all sort of at the edge of our seat.
Did you say fertilizer salesman from Iowa? Is that what you said?
I said fertilizer from a mile away.
Yeah,
That
yeah, okay.
always says, right? Fertilizer salesman from a mile away. You smell like bull.
I see, a mile away. Okay.
Yeah. I don't trust people from Iowa, though. I'm in Ohio, and they always confuse us.
And you're going to we're actually, I understand, and when we do our canvassing, I know Lynn is going to talk about it, but the plan is you're going to launch out of your house, right? So you're going to be our host for the launch. So we'll look forward to meeting you and just interacting a little bit too.
Yeah, you'll get to meet my family too. They'll be on hand to make sure you get drinks and bathroom access all day whenever you need it. So.
Well, if you have to go off and do something, that's fine. You don't have to, that's good too. All right, go ahead, Lynn. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. Hi, I'm Lynn Fletcher, for anybody who doesn't know me. And hi, Katie. I first want to echo, I'm so excited that we've raised now maybe $10,000 just today, and just how important it is to contribute to these amazing candidates. And Katie, you were terrific. I also know that a lot of you are eager to give in other ways. And here's your chance. I am leading the canvass for Katie Sponsler next Saturday, July 31st. And after hearing from her, I am literally more excited than ever to get out there and talk to people and introduce them to Katie. A couple of weeks ago, I canvassed for the first time since 2019. And I'll be honest, it was the best canvassing experience I have probably ever had. I don't know whether it's the pandemic or just people, it was nice weather, but people really were happy to talk. And I ended up having actual conversations with about half the people whose doors I knocked on. And many of these were really great conversations with folks who are what everybody's calling low propensity voters, and what I actually like to call high potential voters. Next Saturday, we're going to be having those great conversations on behalf of Katie with voters in Virginia's 66th district. And I want to ask you to please join us and ask other people to join us. I think it's going to be amazing. And after getting to meet Katie here and then in your home, Katie, I am just so excited to do this. If you've never canvassed before, or if you're feeling a little rusty, we will match you up with an experienced canvassing buddy. And I did that last time, and it's just great. I've done it a number of times. It's really fun. And we're having an orientation meeting on Thursday night at 7:00 via Zoom. We'll get that link out to you, where we'll go over all the details and, about the exact launch site, because I don't know Katie's address at this moment. It's a bit south of Richmond. We'll cover all the basics at the meeting and send you links to some videos you can watch to brush up in case, you need a little bit of that. We'll also talk about gathering as a group later in the day and even maybe staying overnight, which some folks are already planning on. So you can go sign up at the link in the chat, which I think Erin is putting up. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. I think that's also in the chat. And I look forward to seeing you all in person next Saturday and meeting Katie. And now, Julie Greenberg from our digital team is going to update you on digital efforts.
Hi, everyone. So the digital team is the 3-person team that meets with Chris Bachman, who is our digital ad producer and is also the approved vendor for a couple dozen, I think, campaigns now in Virginia. She has her own PAC, the Our States Matter PAC, that members fund, and through those donations, we produce videos that can add a digital ad boost to campaigns. But they're always done in coordination with the campaign. So this team is Jim Shelton, Debbie Vodenos, and myself. We decided this year, one of the things that you may have noticed, we decided that we needed to update all of you donors as more often than we've done in the past. So every time you get an e-newsletter about 31st Street activities, anytime there's room in it, that it's not crowded out by other stuff, we're going to have an update on what's going on with the digital ad production and distribution and what data we have about viewership and all that. So you may have noticed that those updates are coming. The last update that came out this past week was one about the first ad in the Democrats Deliver series. Well, what we hope will be a series. Right now it's just one ad, but we're hoping it's going to maybe get to as many as 6 ads, because Chris Bachman has 6 really good ideas of ads that carry this theme. It's one of the themes that you may have noticed that Jim identified as one of 3 themes that it would be really, really nice for Democrats to hammer on. So we're going to, in case you didn't notice that ad and didn't see it, we're going to show that in a minute. But I just want to say a couple words about it before Jim puts that ad on. So why Democrats Deliver? Well, right now, the ad production that Chris has done has been directed to introducing the strategically selected candidates we're selecting we've identified in our slate as being the ones we really want to promote the most, those 5 candidates, to producing the bio ads. And you just saw one of the bio ads. That was for Katie, and that's the 5th of the 5 ads that have been produced. If you haven't seen all of them, I think maybe I'll put together in the next update, I'll put a collection of all of them so you can go through them one by one. But those are now ready to roll. And as soon as the campaigns want them to go out and be targeted over the digital sort of airwaves, they'll go out. Right now they're being posted on campaign websites and Facebook pages, and they've been used for Twitter storms. So they're getting out there already, but they'll also get out more formally with targeted ways. Now the Democrats Deliver, those are filling a vacuum that is independent of any campaign. They can go out, any Democrat, assuming a Democratic candidate wants it, can use one of these ads. That's the whole plan. They can go out, they're generic, they apply to all the Democrats. The Democratic candidate can add a little messaging at the end of them, but they need not. And right now, if those ads go out, which they are going out in 2 districts, just to collect some data right now, Alex Askew's district and Nancy Guy's district, they're going out into essentially a digital vacuum that, except for Terry McCullough's digital ads, there's really not much going on to brand the Democrats and what they've done and what they've accomplished and why we need them. So we really think this is very, very fertile ground, and we hope to get really good data in the next week or so from those districts to say, hey, base voters really are clicking on these ads and they're sharing, they're watching the whole ad. I think it's 30 seconds. These are great ads. And Chris is hoping that then she can really promote them to many other candidates in Virginia, get them running now, early on, before the Republican messaging starts whittling away at that, to the extent that someone has some kind of mental picture that the Democrats have been effective, whittling it away. And to the extent that the voters' conception of what the Democrats have done is a blank slate, which for many voters, it is a blank slate, that we have not overlooked the opportunity to fill that slate with all of these accomplishments. So, Jim, why don't you show the ad, and then if anybody has any questions about the digital ad initiative, we can take those up.
30 seconds isn't a long time to talk about how much Democrats in Virginia have done in just 2 years. But we'll try. They did this, and this, also that, this. Yep, that too. And that's just the start of the list. Imagine how much they could do in the future. Probably. But seriously, Virginia, let's fight to keep our Democratic doers doing.
So I saw Ken Klutzke had a question about making videos for Virginia. Is it too late? No, it's not too late. There's plenty of time and there's plenty of ideas on the table. We just want to make sure that there's a market. We want to make sure that people get them and use them and get them out. So we have some money available for targeting, and we also want some demand pull from those candidates.
Thanks, Julie. I love that ad. It's one of my faves. Any other questions for Julie or for Lynn? Just any questions in general before we can open it up. But anything for Julie about the digital work, anything for Lynn about the canvassing?
I want to clarify, in case I didn't get that, in case I misspoke, that the orientation is Thursday night at 7 p.m. Jim, do you have the Zoom link, or are we using yours?
I'll have to set it up. It's my usual thing, but I'll set it.
Okay, maybe you can put that in the chat too. But we'll send it to everybody who signs up. So just sign up on the link and you'll get it.
Yeah, great. So any other comments, questions? It was really wonderful to meet Katie. I'm not quite sure if she's still here, but that was a highlight. It's really, really helpful to meet these candidates because otherwise it's just sort of an abstract idea that we know they're wonderful because Jim has focused on them, but to meet actually the person in the flesh is just, it's irreplaceable. Katie, thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak with us. You must be very, very busy. And so thank you.
No, thank you all really for having me. I am, but it got me out of the sun. It's ridiculously hot down here today. So I've been knocking doors all morning. So I was grateful for the break.
Well, it doesn't look that hot for next Saturday, by the way, from what I saw.
Yes, it looks like currently we should have a little bit of a reprieve. So hopefully we get the, but you know, either way, like I said, we'll make sure I'll be out with y'all. So that we'll make sure you have a nice place to go to with air conditioning and water too. Because the family between the autism and the German accent doesn't like to knock doors. So.
So Lisa Keithley has a question about whether or not if the training would be appropriate. We're going to plan to have an orientation before every major canvass. So, I mean, we're going to have a schedule actually of canvasses through the rest of the year, including 2 in Hampton Roads, 2 weekends, and some more in the Richmond area. And for those major ones, there's also opportunity for people just if they just want to go out and canvass for Josh Cole. They're doing that every weekend, for example. But so you don't have to sit in on this, Lisa. You can wait for the next one. And for Barbara, she wanted the Pennsylvania donation link in the chat, so I've done that for her.
So we are planning a Pennsylvania, another Pennsylvania fundraising event at the end of August. We're going to have other fundraising events in September. So we're just going to keep plowing forward. So if there are no other questions or comments, we'll just say thank you very much for coming this afternoon and for donating so much money in 1 hour. That was really fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everybody. Have a good rest of the day.